Hey there, Kenneth French of Vast Voice, telling business secrets to entrepreneurs. We're very, very happy you stopped by. Either you're going to watch this or listen to this because you want to take your business to the next level. You're probably an entrepreneur who's either just starting out or you've been around for quite a while and you want to take your business to the next level. You're probably a real estate investor, maybe even a real estate agent, maybe a professional or of some sort, professional advisor of some sort. And well, you are stopping by because you need some valuable advice from one of the top industry leaders there is. Anyway, thank you very much. Once again, Kenneth French, Vast Voice, telling business secrets to entrepreneurs. Really glad you stopped by.
Alex Ottewell, the mindset man. I'm excited to be here. This is going to be a good conversation. We're going to have some fun today. You ready for this?
Definitely. Let's go.
Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, I really am glad you're here. I'm glad Alex is here. I'm glad you're here with Vast Voice, telling business secrets to entrepreneurs. We're going to talk to Alex about his mindset, how he's gone from being a loser to a complete stud. How's that sound?
I don't know if I go that far, but definitely doing bigger things.
You're doing some big things. I know you can't talk about some of it. You have disclosure agreements, non-disclosure agreements, but let's just chat first. Tell us a little bit about your background, and let's get into some of the stuff you're doing today, and then some of the mindset that I think can help so many of our people that are watching and listening.
Yeah. So originally from England, my parents.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I throw that one in now. I haven't been saying it in years, but yeah, I was born in England. I moved to the United States when I was 9. My parents started a business here, emigrated here, American dream. Um, Fast forward right in the crash time, it was tough on, especially my mom, fell homeless. Um, ended up,
Whoa.
yeah, I've been opening up my story more. Yeah.
Go into that. I want to hear a little bit
Yeah.
about that right off the bat.
So, parents divorced when I was 14. I decided to go to boat mechanic school. Was never really, in high school. I was always screwing up. I actually almost they almost stopped me from graduating because I missed like 60 days my senior year. And I was always chopping and changing, buying cars, flipping those because I wanted something better. So I'd buy a cheap car, clean it up, flip it. Even at a young age, I think my earliest technical business was lawn care. I was like 10 years old and I was going around charging $50 to cut grass. Like most kids, I sold the mood rings in middle school and then graduated flipping cars in high school. But yeah, so I got out of high school. I went to boat mechanic school for a year program. I was rebelling against the idea of being in business. I was like, you know what? I'm going to work with my hands. It sounds like a great idea. Fast forward 6 months maybe into working for Marine Max, which is a big yacht company. I fell off a boat, shattered my knee, couldn't kneel down for months. So my dad at the time was getting into tax deeds. The correction had kind of hurt him, with real estate falling out. He had a bunch of rentals. So he was going back in, went to tax deed auctions, and he's like, hey, you want to come help me fix up some properties? So we were dealing with, cheap 5 or 10 grand dumps. I mean, back then, 5 or 10 grand, this was 2011, 2011, 2012. 5, 10, 15 grand, you could buy a house in Tampa. But we were cleaning them up. And at the time, my mom had gone through a divorce. She had stomach cancer and she had a hysterectomy the same year, but she ended up not having any money. I was living in a small little 600 square foot shack. I mean, I don't know what you want to call it, but little tiny home, not very pretty. And 2 bedrooms, and she had nowhere to go. She was couch surfing for about 5 months. And then finally I said, hey, I've got a stable place. You want to come live with me? So she did. It's probably a lot of my early motivation, to be honest with you, because at the time I was probably making $20 an hour, and which was good, for that era. But it's, as a 19-year-old kid, but the wasn't going to cut it. So I ended up venturing away from my dad a bit. We started going to the auctions together, but I got some investment, friends and family kind of thing, and started with like about 50 grand to go to the auction. So I was buying a couple of properties at a time. I ended up paying back the initial person quick, brought on some more investors. Yeah, we just scaled it up. It was a lot of cheap stuff. So initially it wasn't big profits. And later on in my career, I went sell it direct and stopped going to the auctions right around 2018. Got into cold calling, got pretty good at that. We were doing with 8 cold callers, 40 hours a week. We were doing 2,000 motivated leads a month, which was a lot. So I ended up building a call center out of that. A lot of people asking me, "Hey, Alex, can you do lead generation for me?" So during COVID, I turned it into a business, and we got Kevin Harrington to endorse that business and recommend, I think legally on my contract, but he did a little infomercial with me, and we skyrocketed, brought in over 200 reps during that time, placed them, managed them, whatnot. But yeah, that was the real estate journey. I mean, I was scaled. I mean, I had about 4 crews running in house. We'd have 20 to 25 projects going at a time. So
No, I get it. Yeah. Your mindset, like I said, that's the reason I call you mindset man, because you think big. There's no doubt about that. Kevin Harrington, as an example. I mean,
yeah,
you have a good story. So I'm going to jump to it. Yeah, let's hang out for about a half an hour or so. So what is it that you think? Oh no, let's say you were starting back when you were 19, kind of your mom was couch surfing, as it were.
yeah,
What's the one thing you would tell someone who is now 19 to be able to turn their life around? I know it sounds weird. I'm asking you this because you're
no,
30.
yeah,
Got it. You have
34.
a good story. What's one thing you would tell that person to, broaden their horizon, to be able to take it to the next step, or at least take one step and then 2 steps and then become a wealthy, successful stud like you?
Well, I think social media is actually a flawed instrument these days that a lot of the youth, lean on. Don't get me wrong, there's great information online, but what I find is people have this mindset that they're going to catapult to $100 million or $1 billion company overnight. And, they'll look at stuff, and instead of taking small actionable risk, they overwhelm themselves with the bigger proposition. Because, at the end of the day, if you're Alex Hormozy says, this is one of my favorites. He said, if you have $0 in the bank, you have nothing to lose. You're more dangerous than anybody, because that's the truth. I think the problem is, in order to build something, you have to realize it takes time to nurture. We're 2.5 years in now to my oil company. And I explained day one, if you actually go look at my business plan, it's pretty accurate of our growth and everything else. But I set the goal that we wouldn't actually make lots of money until later on, because I recognized the industry required me to build a brand, a presence, and everything else before I really focused on revenue generating activities. Now, when it comes to the youth, right now we have AI going on, right? So it's easy to say, hey, let's go start an AI business. But really, you want to find a supply and demand problem. So, for example, I got into real estate auctions. We recognized everybody wanted houses. So I bought mobile homes with land. That was my vertical that I did better because I had less competition, but I feel the need, right? Like with housing, people get obsessed with the idea of what they would live in. But truly, when people are in a lower economic position, they need a house that's clean, move-in ready, whatever it may be. They don't necessarily need luxury. So I felt that people needed more affordable housing. So that's why I went to mobile homes and land and provided a product that was pretty good. With the call center, those people were terrible at cold calling. I was really good at it. So as I saw the demand increasing, because more and more people were asking me to get involved in that, I moved into that space. Oil and gas industry, because it's so big, I've said this before, but if you're under $100 million company, you're kind of deemed mom and pop in the sector.
Okay.
So it's a bigger space. So where I saw the need in this industry was the fact that under $10 million, there's not a lot of financing, but B, there's not a lot of people purchasing those assets. The bigger company wants bigger stuff. The middle-level companies are just consolidating what they have, putting together more assets to it. So there's a lot of left, empty, vacant assets. The same reason why we just rolled out our lending division, because there's no loans available for repairs in oil under $2.5 million. You really need a $10 million budget in order to be able to go get a loan. So if you only need 500 grand, there's nobody for it. So we just rolled out a lending division. So I guess the point here is everything I do, before I jump into it, I make sure there's actually an area that's being overlooked. And with AI, think everybody wants to go target the easy, low hanging fruit, but there's definitely use cases that haven't been established yet. Um,
Mm.
but you have to reach out to your audience before you do that. You know, I find what's interesting too, especially switching industries. The majority of my friends when I started this business were in real estate investments. So their views are biased based on their surroundings, their interactions. When you
Yeah, when
move,
it's a nail and you have a hammer in your
yeah.
hand, yeah, yep.
So we moved into a different industry. I started seeing more wide range views of things. And I think if you're going to be a kid and you're going to dive into a new space, just see what's in need and then provide a solution, right? That's the way to make the
Yeah,
biggest.
supply and demand. I guess what you're saying is, got to make sure there's the demand out there. And I think you're probably right about the social media, but a lot of times people are going to something where there's not a demand, and that's a huge issue.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we live in an era, I mean, as you know, that most people just teach the stuff because it's easier to teach it than it is to actually do it.
Mhm.
Um, so I think service, if I was going to start anything right now, this is
Mhm.
exactly what I would do. I would learn AI enough to be able to build some sort of product, and then reach out to small mom and pop businesses to apply that product to and get them on a subscription basis. Because
Yeah.
I believe within 6 months, like if you gave me a new challenge and I had to build $1 million a year revenue business, I would build something in AI and just go grab 50 clients, then you're good. I mean, people underestimate three, four, $500 a month on a reoccurring basis. It stacks really quickly.
Yeah, I'm obviously I've been in AI for years, as you know, on the tax side, fintech, et cetera. But I just got a call yesterday from a guy. He's in grad school, second year grad school, and he asked me, "Hey, would you go into, tax?" I said, "I wouldn't go into tax, but I would go into AI/tax, meaning get a
Mm.
subscription based model, get some, ongoing revenue of a product or a service that's online that you can, help a bunch of people, make sure the demand's there, and then
Yeah.
scale it up. And so you're not having to be by the phone. Instead, the computer is giving you income on an ongoing basis. I totally agree with that. So then, okay, so then what about, let's say someone were, I don't know, let's say someone's $10 million net worth and they're doing pretty well, but they want to take it to the next level. So before we went into someone who's 19, but now let's take it to someone who's whatever, I don't know, 40, and they want to, instead of making, couple $1 million a year, they want to make 5 million. Give me an idea.
Yeah. I mean, I think most industries have a couple of tiers to them. You know, there's kind of all the entry level guys, and you got the guys that are established but don't want to move out of it. And then you got the bigger way of business runs. Um, making a few $1 million a year is hard to say because me moving from one industry where I was making multiple millions in a year to an industry to zero and then having to rebuild it, I can say that this path isn't actually. If you have kids and you have a wife and stuff, don't put them through this because I've definitely had my fair share of pain from trying to learn a new space. So I think in your own space, if you could stay in it, it'd be better. Because you already
I,
have.
I like hold on. I like your story though. I like what you're doing because you're making good money now, and you're saying, I like something else. You want to take it to another level, and that's a
Yeah,
killer story because that shows that it's your mentality. Alex, you have a killer mentality. The way you think is next level.
appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I'm pointing to, right? Like, hey, you could do the leap like I did and learn a new space because I think a lot of people get stuck when they reach a few million a year where you say, well, I've already tapped my market. But the truth is, majority of people haven't even touched their market.
Yeah,
They just haven't expanded their marketing capabilities. So it's kind of a hard question to really truly answer.
I
I
know.
would I would say look at bolt-on opportunities. Like for example, with the fix and flip, I added a white label data company because it helped with lead gen because my cold call clients could use my data and then it increased my quality of lead generation because
Mhm.
when it comes to marketing if you can control more areas of it then you can essentially um, be be more predictable with your outputs. So yeah, I mean, I maybe looking at that, like adding verticals on. I mean, I don't have any. It's a tough one because I could say, hey, go invest in this, go invest in that. I mean, obviously, I'm not a investment advisor, but um, I think I think investing in actually, you know what? I will give you an easy answer. If I had a few $1 million a year business, I would go and hire the best AI consultant I could and
Look at you. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
have them analyze my business from, a third party lens and see what kind of apps or softwares that I could build in to increase my efficiency. That
Mhm.
would probably be one. And then the second, I would probably look at expanding into more states or more regions, whatever it may be. I think those are probably actually the two I would look at for increasing it. Because, I've met some really good operators of even oil fields that I can tell had a desire to expand, but they didn't have, it's really hard when you're in that kind of income to want to mess with stuff because you're like, okay, I'm making a few $1 million a year. I can live really good, or I can throw a grenade into it and see if it works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hold on. But I agree with what you're saying because, yeah, not everyone's going to do what you're doing, making a good living and then, pivot to something else. But what I would say is like for us, here's an example. Like what you're saying to do a bolt on or an additional piece of business, we call them bumps. So let's say someone comes to us for whatever, AI and tax, right? And let's say we could save them a bunch of money. But for a bolt on for us would be, let's say we could get them a whatever, I'm making this up, a qualified plan or a captive insurance or something kind of unique that will still help them, but it's an added service that helps lower their taxes. But then again, we make some more revenue and it's working with existing clients because that's where it's at. If you could work with existing
Yeah.
clients and make more money per client, then you're good to go. That's what I would suggest. And what you're saying is right. I think there's just obviously, I just wrote a book on AI. There's just no way you can't succeed if you are good at adding on artificial intelligence and optimizing. You don't need to hire as many employees. Plus, who knows? Maybe you can even, make yourself more efficient as a company as a result of using artificial intelligence. Everything you've said, I think is spot on.
Yeah. I mean, ChatGPT, for example, we already have our base business model, which ChatGPT understands. Um, I wanted to add on that lending model. And
Mm.
probably within 30 minutes of prompting, I built out the entire model because I already had a base for it. So it already understood how I thought. So when it went to the model, it was advising based on my way of leveraging. So one of the things I do in business, I try to provide the most amount of value to the point where people look past finite details, extension fees, exit fees,
Mm.
whatever fees it may be. Because if you market yourself correctly and you really sell your product properly, you don't need to worry about people pushing back. I think there's always a fear that people won't buy your stuff because you're expensive. But I think most businesses or most verticals, it's ease of use. The more simple you can make something occur, or the simpler process, simpler transaction, less things people have to do, if you can minimize that down to almost nothing, then they have a higher likelihood of going forward with you over a competitor, even if the competitor is a better price.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. You got to push your service, then they don't look at the cost as much because really what matters is the service. If the service brings them in, I don't know, an extra 20% versus extra cost of, I'm making this up, $5. Well, obviously they're going to go with you because you're making them whatever a higher rate of return or lowering their costs. That's a really good point.
Yeah, look at like why people, on the psychology level, why do people go to their friends when they want to use a realtor or something like that? It's familiarity, but it's also the fact that it's an ease of entry. They don't have to research anybody.
Uh,
They can just pick up a call, that you pick up the phone and call the person. That's it. So if you can make your process as simple as picking up a phone or filling out 5 page, five section form, just real simple, um, you'll get a better retention, but you also get a better initial influx of people. Like when we're
just
marketing, we're not gonna make it complex because we want the most amount of people to show interest, and then sure later on down the line you can add in some complexities. But that up front when you're just grabbing their attention, it has to be simple.
Yeah, and it's so funny. How many websites, you go in, you fill out all the stuff to buy their product or whatever, and then for some reason there's friction thrown in at the end, whatever it is. That makes it hard. Dude, that's the worst part. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the worst. I end up going somewhere else, That drives me crazy. It's a good
Well,
point.
I look at myself too. So people say, "Well, I don't know how other people think." Well, are you the kind of guy like you just said? If I see a product on Facebook and I click on it and I don't have my credit card with me or don't have something, I just close it out and I'll buy it later, and I never do.
Never
So
do. Yeah.
so this is why follow-up's important, but also I think your process on the upfront. If you can make your process as standalone as possible to where nobody has to be involved while you're initially capturing leads or filling out forms. I mean, I want to make this as simple as possible in the loan processing. We're replicating basically hard money type evaluation, but to
Mm,
oil and gas. We're looking at the asset. We're not looking at the borrower as much.
mm.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, it's you can do a lot right now just by optimizing. If you can clear, let's say you're doing 10 million a year on a 20% margin, so you're making 2 million bucks. Well, if I can increase my efficiencies 5%,
Mm.
now I've just increased my overall income by what, 25%. So
Yeah. People used to think I was mainly with AI. I would say people used to think I was crazy. I remember just a few years ago, 5 years ago or whatever, talking about artificial intelligence. I remember people laughing at me. I was on a board, kind of like a focus group, where I was talking about artificial intelligence, and people were thinking I was absolutely crazy on that board. And here now, one of them specifically is a Canadian dude. Now he's like the AI guru, and he was probably the biggest biggest protagonist laughing at me about artificial intelligence. And there's so many people who are now using it, but I think at the same time, they're not optimizing it. And like you're saying, if you bring in someone who's a big time stud who really can dedicate the time to get a company to really understand it and implement it, I think it can make some money, some huge money for entrepreneur.
yeah, I mean, this goes back to most people's mindset with like even hiring. They don't want to hire the guy, the A+ player. They want to hire the B player. And
Because they're cheaper. Yeah.
yeah, for an extra 20% salary bump, you can have people that really understand it, will grow you rapidly. I think people underappreciate and value the aspect of hiring an A player over a B player. It's a totally different kind of guy. I mean, we only bring in A players now. I mean, I used to dabble with a few Bs because I was trying to cost save, but I was saying to you earlier, my geophysics guy, I mean, 350 grand a year. I could go get a guy for 150, but this guy will make me far more money
Yeah.
than the guy for 150. So
Yeah, Hormozy is a big advocate of that. Why even bring someone who's a small thinker who charges less? I know it sounds weird. Bring in someone who's a big thinker who charges more, but they can make you that much more money, so it totally makes up in the end.
yeah, quality hires are important. I've made some very poor decisions with hiring over the years, and I think I'm at the point now where I'm actually going off of Kevin O'Leary's way of structuring things. He basically gives everybody a 90-day contract where
Yeah.
he'll pay them more and then he converts them into a salary position. I think that's the best way to work with people because unfortunately these days on the face, everybody seems great. But once you dive in, you learn these personality traits and everybody's very different now. It used to be
Mm-hmm.
like politically, for example, everybody was kind of like okay with each other, even if they had an opposing party. Now it's like if you're a Democrat or Republican and you're both intense about it, you won't even be friends with each other anymore, which I think is personally ridiculous. Because I'll tell you right now, I just met a bunch of House representatives and a couple of senators yesterday or day before, and they don't give it. They don't care at all if you like them or not. I'm just telling you that right now. And if you're fighting your family over it, it's even worse.
That's
So
pretty good. I can see you in front of Congress or whatever.
I've met 3 governors now. I have Governor Gordon of Wyoming's personal number. So gotten
That's
pretty
funny.
gotten pretty cool these days.
The mindset man, Alex Ottawell, man. By the way, you mentioned Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful. By the way, he's on our website at vastsolutionsgroup.com saying that we could do some really good stuff with artificial intelligence. And he was on there 2020, by the way, saying we could do good stuff. So that's tune our own horn again. Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful. So, all right. So let's shift gears a little bit.
Sure.
I know, and I'm sure you have some sensitive things. You can't go into too much detail as to what you're doing, but
Cool. Yeah.
the mindset man, as far as big picture guy, big
Yeah.
mindset. What are you doing now, or what are some thoughts maybe in the future of your business, where you want to take it, kind of the next thing down the road?
Yeah. So I mean, in my space specifically, there's kind of three different versions of companies. You got the majors, which are like the Exxon Mobil's, Marathon just divested, but the ConocoPhillips, Occidental, all the big boys everybody's heard of. And then you have a mid-level companies, which are typically in the billions because with oil and gas under 100 million is deemed mom and pop. Um, then you got like the independent guys, and most of them, which they create 70% of the oil production in America right now. The small guy. We always think of oil producers as these massive, huge companies, but a lot of them, I mean, they're big and relative to normal day-to-day life, but they're 5, 10, $15 million companies, and even more of them are $2 million companies. So what my goal is, a lot of the majors right now, if you go on the news, have been consolidating. And though we don't really like the idea of consolidation, because that typically means stripping, the life out of the business, what we do is we're going around and acquiring existing companies with small operations and essentially bolting them to a centralized office space. So all the management kind of, well, yeah, kind of like a private equity deal where you have your in-house team and then they advise to all the different uh company level people. So whether the managers in the office, field directors, things like that, we're taking that same sort of model. And the unique part about us, which is, I think, private equity, for example, makes a mistake here, in my opinion. We keep their existing staff. We don't strip them down. We also keep their name on the door. If they don't want to change name because it's an 80-year-old company, we'll keep the name. Do a lot of things that private equity won't. So our goal, I want to be the largest by 2030. I want to be the largest buyer of independent oil and gas companies in the United States.
Are you serious? See, that's what I mean. Your mindset's huge, man. I love hearing that. That's cool.
Yeah. So, well, funny enough, I was on the phone with the publisher of, I can't tell you who, but top 3 oil and gas magazines. And we had an hour and a half conversation about the future of oil. And he said to me, well, Alex, I've been in the game for a long time, over 50 years. The magazine's been around for 50, 70 years. He's like, I see you as the future face of independent oil and gas in America.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's my boy right there.
So pretty exciting. I mean, we'll see where it takes. One of the pieces that I've also brought to the table, which most people wouldn't really think about, and this is kind of important, we all build communities amongst our space, right? Real estate has a big community of people that know each other and whatnot. Oil and gas, where they struggle is advocacy. So you see a ton of people beating down oil and gas. And one thing I like to reiterate is there's 6,000 different product types being produced from a barrel of oil. So 30 or 40% of it may go to gasoline, but the rest of it's going to products like makeup.
Oh, yeah. Roof tiles and
plastic, asphalt, all that stuff. So the advocacy of oil, of how important it is, because yes, sure, one day we'll need something else. But right now, the idea of shutting off oil production is just silly because it creates further pressure on the consumer, because now pricing is going to move up on everything else. Is supply and demand, right? The oil industry is a very good example of supply and demand. I think what we're doing is we launched a website called learnaboutoil.org, and it's 100 free educational videos that explain the basic principles of oil and gas production, use cases, how engineering job works. But we did it to the standard of the modern day consumer of information. So, for example, TikTok, when they made the 60-second videos, they did that because psychologically it keeps you locked in. So we mimicked that. All of our videos around 1, maybe 1.5 minutes. So this way people can consume this in bite-sized pieces, because that's how, you can't fight what's happening with society. Society has short attention spans. Society doesn't want to spend a lot of time on stuff. So you have to mimic that when it comes to your marketing. And we've done that with our Learn About Oil initiative. Where I see that going is over time, we actually want to get it into school systems. So that's my goal with that, because there's nobody willing to put out a product and spend the money themselves to educate consumers, because to them, it doesn't seem to make sense, right? On a financial move. But for me, if I'm 34 years old and I want to be in this industry for another 40 years, it's super important that people are informed before they make a decision. I mean, when I watched Kamala Harris on stage talking about fracking, it just melted my brain that a potential president didn't know anything about fracking. But most people don't. And to be honest with you, the cool part about my business model is we'll take an existing field that should have been plugged and we'll rejuvenate it back to the point where it can continue to produce. Because one weird misnomer with oil is that we're running out, because since the 80s, government has always said, hey, we're running out, or, people's studies say we're running out. The true thing is technology now has advanced so much that we don't even know how much oil is left.
Yeah, there's tons out there.
Yeah, I'll tell you why. So, for example, in Kansas, where I just was, those fields were drilled back in the 50s. In a formation, or formations in general, layers of the cake, like the earth, if you remember back in middle school, the globe with the layers in it. Well, oil is pocketed in different areas. So I could have a field that was drilled 70, 80 years ago. They drilled down to 2,500 feet and they've been producing from 2,500 feet the whole time. But there may be 5 or 6 other depths there that have more oil. So with us, our first phase right now is to go consolidate and buy as much production as possible. In the next 12 months, we hope to close $100 million in assets, just to give you an example of the speed we're trying to do. The next 12 months after that, we're projected to do 250. So in purchased amount. And then the goal behind it is, if I own all these mature fields and technology advances further with AI and everything else, I'm controlling a ton of land to be able to go in and re-enter these wells deeper, open up new pay zones, whatever it may be. So on an investment part, it's important because we're not doing the quick fix and flip you would in real estate. We're trying to create longevity of the existing wells to recover the capital and then go forward and look for further value later on down the road once our investors have been paid back and we've all made a good amount of money.
I love that. That's cool, man. That's a cool world. I mean, to go into a place that has been around for 50 years, as an example, that's throwing out resources, and then maybe there's a place close to it, there's even more resources and just hasn't been tapped. And that's really cool. That's why I think some of the stuff you do is really cool. So how about this? What's one thing, as we get ready to close the door here, what's one thing we have not talked about that you think can add value to an entrepreneur, anyone in the United States making, let's just say they're making $250,000 a year? What's one thing we have not talked about that can add value to he or she in today's marketplace?
I think if you're making 250, live on 50 and then invest with 200. That's a big thing I see guys doing. I watch guys making 250 a year driving a Lambo. That's, we were doing multiple millions a year before I bought my first Lambo. And I think
right there, that's cool, by the way, that you said that. Again, mindset right there.
Yeah. Like I was a millionaire at 24 and it wasn't until, it wasn't until I was 29 that I bought my first exotic car. Delayed gratification is probably the biggest muscle you got to learn. 2.5 years in this game of blood, sweat, and tears to finally have all the things aligned to where we can super excel. There's a saying, you probably know this one, but people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10. We're all in a rush. Everybody is. I'm in a rush too, but sometimes you got to sit and wait. Sometimes the best opportunities come when you sit and wait.
Yeah, you'd be blown away. Like I live in Washington State, a place called Bellevue, where people are, they have all the cool cars, et cetera, but they're living paycheck to paycheck versus some of the people who are kind of rearing it back. Those are the ones who are probably going to end up making the most money. I like that.
I'll give you one other cool piece we did. So giving back is super important to me. I've been doing it for a long time. And we just launched a program. So every load of oil we sell, which is 140 barrels of oil, every load we sell, we're donating $25 to drill water wells across the globe. And based on the pro forma of what our new fund is doing, we should get up to donating about $500,000 a year. And with that, we can drill wells for around 10 to 12 grand. So initially, we're going to try and actually reach out to Mr. Beast and see if we can do some stuff with him. I'm gonna wait until I got a $500,000 check and call him up and see if he'll, see if I can get hold of him. But the long term goal is to do it ourselves. I think that's super cool. But yeah, I mean, we are in a very unique time. Baby boomers are leaving, or that generation is retiring, and I think M&A is super big. I mean, obviously it's talked about a lot, but most people don't realize what it takes to take over an existing business. When I hear of people wholesaling businesses, I laugh because they've never run a business. They don't understand the intricacy and the specifics. And also, I think wholesalers in general, one of the flaws they have is they're used to hustle businesses, whereas most traditional mom and pop businesses operate on a pretty specific regimen. And in order to be able to make it a flippable business, you have to update that to modern standards. Because, for example, private equity won't come buy your business unless you can be removed from it. If you can't be removed from your own business, it will run without you, then it's not a business anymore. Um, my plan, to tell you the truth, within 24 months, I'll probably step down as CEO. Because by then, if we're a $200+ million company, I'm not the guy to lead that. I'm the guy to be the visionary, the president, things like that. And yeah, just I think overall with the 250 guy, they just need to do more. I mean, more. That's don't get comfortable. 250 is poor. That's the truth of it. In this era, 250 a year, you're poor, because 100 grand a year breaks you even just to live basic. 250 a year after taxes and everything else and the kids, you don't have free spending money. If you can't take a trip to Europe first class, you need to make more money.
Yeah.
That way.
Like we were saying, is more. I can't more. That's your mindset. I love hanging out with you, man. It's always been always good hanging out with you. Yeah. Oh, by the way, how does someone get a hold of you if they're interested in your fund or
Sure.
learning your mindset, etc.?
Yeah. Well, Instagram, alex.ottawell. That's my IG handle. But then also OWP Capital Group is our fund. Explains everything about that. It's pretty unique how I structured it. Yeah. So those two are probably the best places to reach. Me direct is Instagram. And if you want to learn about our fund, owpcapitalgroup.com.
Awesome. Well, once again, hey, I really do appreciate you being here. And for all those people who are out there watching, listening, this is Kevin French, Vast Voice, telling business secrets to entrepreneurs. Thanks, everybody.